Hey everyone, welcome back to CWLbuilds. I'm Caleb, and today I'm going to be making Poe Damerons leg flares. Now if you don't know what those are, here's a photo of Poe Dameron, and I'm going to zoom in on the leg flares that I'm making for my Poe Dameron costume that I debuted at Silicon Valley Comic-Con a few weekends ago. This is my first time working with 3D printed objects, and I found this design on Thingiverse from a uploader named CWLBadger. And it was printed on my friend Miranda's 3D printer. She's an amazing cosplayer. I'll put all her information below. Now, as you can see here in these macro shots, these 3D prints have a lot of lines in it and a lot of detail, which I don't really want. I want these to look like they're smooth metal pieces. The first step for me was to fill these two gaps that you see in the end of the 3D print. Now this 3D print came out very well, and the design was very good as well. It's just that it wasn't quite as accurate as I wanted it to be, so I used these epoxy sculpt and filled in those gaps so they weren't so deep. Here I'm just using a little bit of rubbing alcohol and my fingers and smoothing out the surface, and you can see here it smooths it out very well. That's one of the cool things about this epoxy sculpt, is that you can use water or alcohol to smooth it out with your fingers before it fully sets. I'm just adding this wire to the end of the 3D print so that when I hang it up to dry after it's been painted or the Bondo's drying, it won't hit anything and mess anything up. And now comes the hardest and longest part of this entire endeavor, and that is sanding and priming and filling and more sanding on top of that. So here's the first round of many of spot putty here, and you'll see me put primer on later and sand it and more primer and more spot putty. It goes on for a while, so I'll just let you watch for a bit. So from a distance, it looks like I've sanded away all the 3D print lines, but from a close-up, as you can see in these macro shots, there are still very small pinholes and divots in the print that I need to fill with more spot putty and more primer. And after many hours of sanding, it's finally ready to be put into the two-part mold. Now, like I said earlier, this is my first time using a two-part mold, or making a two-part mold for that. So I start off with this modeling clay, and I am not an expert by any means on this, so I probably shouldn't say anything about it. So I'll let you guys just watch it. If you do want to watch an expert make these and teach you exactly how it's done, go watch Punished Props videos on two-part molds. They're very informative, and they are way more experienced than I am when it comes to these kind of things. And here's where I ran into the biggest problem of this process, and that was that I didn't actually read the instructions on the mold release spray, and I sprayed it on and didn't allow it to dry. It needs to dry before you can pour the second layer on. I didn't allow enough time for it to dry, and some of my edges stuck together. Now, it wasn't a huge deal in the end. I was still able to open it up enough to get the master out and to get the copies out, but it was not a official two-part mold because it didn't come apart all the way. And after a few trial runs and a few mistakes, here are the 4 best pulls from my mold, and as you can see, they're identical to the master as they should be. All I need to do is do a little cleanup on the edges where the seam line was, and I can start painting. Now once they're painted and fully dry, they can slide into this band that I made to go on the side of my leg, and I'll use a little bit of super glue to hold them in place. And they are finally done after a few hours of hard work and dedication and a heck of a lot of sanding. They're finally finished. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, put them down in the comment section. I love getting back to you guys. Again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this little cinematic at the end. I hope it makes you laugh. And I will see you in the next video.
it weird doing a full cinematic of just my leg? I don't know, it felt kind of weird.